We couldn't think of any historical fantasy books set in Australia, which
Mm-hmm.
is crazy when you think about it, because Australia has the perfect setting for historical fantasy.
Welcome to More Magic, a fantasy book podcast. I'm your host, Demi Utley.
And I'm your co-host, Marianne, Boules.
We have our tea, our cozy blankets, and a lot of books to discuss. Let's get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the More Magic Book Club podcast. Marianne and I today will be talking about historical fantasy books, which I'm so excited to talk to you about this since I know you read a lot of high fantasy, and this is very grounded in our world and very grounded in our history. I just am excited for everyone listening. We're going to share some recommendations and just talk about what we love about the genre, because I feel like maybe in the past year or so, I've discovered that this is maybe one of my favorite types of fantasy is historical fantasy. How do you feel about it?
You know what, Demi? I kind of have to agree with you. I love historical fantasy.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you, are you a history buff in general?
I would say yes, but like when I hear the term history buff, I always think of like World War II, and I do not know. I avoid World War II, so I would say history outside of World War II. Yes.
Okay, that is so funny because I am such a World War II person.
It's too intense for me. I can't.
Yeah, I don't know why my two most masculine qualities is that I always think about the Roman Empire and I always think about World War II. Don't know why. When I found out that there are other people in the world, mostly men, who also like are consumed by thoughts of the Roman Empire, I had a bit of an identity crisis, but also kind of validating, hey, it's not just me who's like really interested in ancient Rome. So yeah, I am a history buff. And I do read a lot of like historical fantasy based in World War II. Like, for example, I think I brought one of these books up before, Life After Life, which is based on about a woman who is alive during the 1940s. And every time she dies, she reincarnates and she slowly starts to remember over time that she's reincarnating and then decides to try to kill Hitler. And
I remember you told me that, and I kind of want to read that, but I'm also like, well, I guess I don't want you to give away the ending, but I'm also like,
yeah.
Do I want to read it?
It is a little intense.
That is interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So I do I love history. And so I think history in general has almost a bit of a fantastical element because like when you think about it, history doesn't actually exist in our current time. It's a story that the people before us tell us, right?
Yeah. Like, oh my gosh, this is like making me think of the everlasting.
Right. And that's what I really love the everlasting point. Is history even real? The stories we tell ourselves about what happened to the people who came before us shapes our modern day life. So there's almost already a fantastical element to history. And so so when you add that added layer of now there's magic, then it like ups the ante a bit. It makes it even more, what's the word I'm looking for? Like endearing?
It's kind of like immersive. At least for me, it feels immersive. Yeah. I don't know if that's what you were going to say, but that's what I was thinking. Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I think I love it because I do like history, and I'll read historical fiction sometimes, or even historical nonfiction, and just like learn about different time periods. But it's fun when there's magic, because then obviously it's just more fun to read it. But also, like sometimes even reading nonfiction history, it feels like fantasy. Like some of the things that like people believed, or even stuff that like literally happened. I'm just like, how is this real? Like this just feels so like insane, you know? And then to add this type of fantasy storytelling on top of that.
To your point, so something Demi and I both realized as we were compiling this list is that we couldn't think of any books, historical fantasy books set in Australia, which is crazy when you think about it, because Australia has the perfect setting for historical fantasy.
Yeah.
Like, you're telling me a country or a continent that first had Aborigines who were completely separated from the rest of humanity for 50,000 years. Like that alone is fascinating. Yeah, they are the most, they are like the group of people that have been the longest separated from the rest of humanity. And so like, I remember when I was teaching bioanthropology, we were learning about this. They are actually proof of how little we've evolved. Like we haven't actually evolved in the last 50,000 years at all, because we're exactly the same. Like, you know, they're human, you know? And so they actually play a big role in like understanding our history as humans from a biological anthropology perspective, because they were separated for 50,000 years. Everyone else was not separated for that long. Even like the Native Americans here, it wasn't that long. It was like 20,000, 30,000. Don't quote me. That one I'm not as sure about. But like so that alone is fascinating. Like think of like the stories we like an Aboriginal writer could share about that. And maybe there are, and they just haven't reached the like American mainland yet. So if there is, people please let me know, because I'd love to read it. But then you have the fact that modern day Australia is based on people who were criminals, who were exiled to this barren like place. And you're telling me there's no like fodder for like a really good story here. Yeah.
Well, like if you just think of the creatures that live in Australia, I think about like kangaroos. Those just seem like they're just so, I mean, obviously, no, I'm not trying to offend any Australians. Like I know that you're used to it. You probably look at like, I don't know, something very American. You're like,
raccoons. How do those exist? People apparently are really obsessed with raccoons in America. Yeah.
Those are kind of crazy. We should have more fantasy that includes raccoons. But yeah, like, and they also, in Australia, there's also, you know, terrifying like spiders and snakes and crocodiles. And like we had Crocodile Dundee, but then like we need also a fantasy equivalent of that.
Right.
The only book, I mean, I feel like now we're on a tangent, but to bring it back to the historical fantasy. So thinking about like over time in history, the only thing that I've read that was set in Australia that's not current times, which I haven't even read anything in current times that's fantasy, was in His Majesty's Dragon series. I think they're called the Temeraire series, but those are the dragon books by Naomi Novik that are during the Napoleonic Wars. Like it's reimagining those wars, but with dragons. And the main character, I believe, goes to Australia. It's been so long since I've read the books, but I'm like 90% sure that in one of the books they go to Australia, and it's like, you know, in the 1800s, I think. So it is like kind of that time period where it's like the British colony, if I remember correctly. So it's like they're sending people there, and yeah, that's the only thing that I can think of. And I'm still like, am I making that up? I don't think I am. I will look it up after this, but I'm like pretty sure that's up there. And that series honestly goes around the whole world. So it's really cool from a historical perspective as well, because it starts out, I think, in Europe, and then at one point goes to China, and it's, you know, just a very different, I don't know what dynasty it is. I don't know my history well enough, but it's a different experience. And then goes to Africa and is part of like the ivory trade, and like really following like the British Empire and like going to these different places and kind of exploring that. But there's dragons and magic, and it's really good. So that's like a good one for like if you're interested in that particular time period and like the whole world. Because I love like I love when there's like a book where I read it and it's, whether it's fantasy or just historical fiction, where I learn about history as well, you know? Yeah.
Totally. That's also an added benefit of historical fantasies. If the author does their work right, you actually get to learn stuff too.
Yeah. Yeah. Which like, I know we talked about that with when Cal Woods came on, because she did so much research for Upon a Starlit Tide. And when I read that book, I just felt like I learned so much about French, would you call them the nobility? Were they nobility? I don't know.
The aristocracy.
Yeah, the aristocracy.
The bourgeoisie.
Yeah, like the rich French, like right before the French Revolution. And also like some of their like mythology and like, you know, folklore and things like that. But I just remember the ship. Okay, I won't go into details, but there's a thing with a ship. And that's pretty violent that I did not know happened. And then I learned it from that book because she researched to make it authentic. And yeah.
Yeah. An uncomfortable truth about historical fantasy is you always learn about what fun and unique ways we tortured each other. And
yeah. Oh my God.
It always changes, but yeah, that's the downside. Is sometimes you like there are a lot of stories based in the Spanish Inquisition. Don't you have a book recommendation that's based on this? Yeah. Speaking of innovation in torture, tell me about that book.
That one wasn't too heavy in torture. I will say none of the ones that I have written down are like very torture intense because I don't like that.
Me neither.
I feel like Upon the Starlit Tide, which I mean that's like kind of a love story. It's not like, it's just gruesome for a little bit for anyone who hasn't read it. It just makes you cringe. It's like learning about.
It's sad.
It's sad. Like sometimes learning about like humans and history just makes me so sad for humanity in general.
That's why
where the fantasy is nice.
Yes. And sometimes I'm like, you know what? My ancestors were so smart to be in like the furthest reaches of Egypt, like deep in the Nile, in like these villages that were not really touched by the rest of the world. I was like, good job. You guys probably saved yourselves a lot of headache because Egypt was the center of a lot of drama. Like if you take it back to ancient times. So like, good job, ancestors. Here I am moving to Los Angeles, 2 minutes from Disneyland, where I could see the fireworks. So I've done the opposite of what my ancestors have done. But sometimes inside of me, I yearned to go back to like, the off-grid lifestyle, like in a farm or something in, I don't know, Iowa, Nebraska. I don't know.
It's so funny. I'm fleeing farm life and you're always like, it's so nostalgic. But there's going to be like 200 years from now, there's going to be a historical fantasy novel about someone living in LA close to Disney and like the magic like is real or something, So you're the future.
I love that. I would read that. I would totally read that.
Oh, you were talking about Egypt. So one of the books that I haven't read, I don't think you've read this either. Have you read like City of Brass and all of those books?
No.
Yeah, that's one that's like very high on my list of historical fantasy, which I looked it up and it said it's in 18th century Cairo.
Oh.
And I think that the whole series is set in Egypt, but again, I haven't read it. But because she also wrote The Adventures of Amina al-Sarafi, because the author's Shannon Chakraborty, and The Adventures of Amina al-Sarafi we do have a podcast episode on. It's very fun. And that one's the 12th century, like the 1100s. In Oman and like on the Indian Ocean. So she does a good job of like, that one was such like Arabian Nights vibes that's what I'm envisioning for City of Brass. But if it's 18th century Cairo, like that's like, it's probably not the same type of vibes. Because it's a little like more modern in the 1700s.
1700s.
Modern for Egypt.
Yeah.
I don't know much about it. Do you have any?
I didn't even know it was based in Cairo. Didn't even know it was based in Cairo. Now I'm intrigued. Now. So I'd like to, maybe I will read this. I know there's like, speaking of Africa and the Middle East, isn't there a book by N.K. Jemisin that's also based in Egypt, but ancient Egypt? I think
I didn't know that.
Wait, let me remember what it's called. The Killing Moon.
Oh, yeah. That's set in Egypt?
Yeah, it is an Egyptian-inspired fantasy novel, and it's like the first of two, so it's a duology. And I think it's like ancient Egypt, so there's like necromancy, so like ancient Egyptian mythology as well. Right.
Yeah, that I didn't realize that, because I thought that all of her stuff was high fantasy, because I do not know. I still haven't read, and I guess next month I'll be reading my first N.K. Jemisin book.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, I'm so excited too. And yeah, I'll have to check that out, because when you were saying that you had that you think about the Roman Empire a lot, I feel like for me I think about Greek mythology like literally every day, and sometimes Egypt. Like it's like those feel they're just so interesting to me. But yeah, Greek mythology is like, I will read anything that is set in ancient Greece. Pretty much any.
I have to agree. Greece is cool. You know what's funny is I've never really cared that much for Egyptian mythology. I don't know why.
Really?
I think it's because like people expect it, and I'm just a rebel at heart. So I'm like, Egypt, give me Rome. don't know.
Well, I mean, Egypt was part of the Roman Empire at one point.
It was, and that's when Egypt gets interesting to me. Actually, is like when it joins the Roman Empire. I'm like, oh, this is fascinating. Like I've watched 2-hour YouTube videos of life in Egypt under the Roman Empire, and then I'm interested. But like for some reason, anything ancient Egyptian, I'm like, yeah, it's cool, but it's not enough to like consume me the way I'm consumed with other places.
Yeah, unless it's The Mummy, the movie.
That movie's great. 10 out of 10. Terrifying as a child. Terrifying.
Yeah, I want a book like that. That's what I was hoping City of Brass is, which maybe it is, because I guess The Mummy is set... it's around like turn of the century, 1900s, right?
Yeah, something like that.
So City of Brass is a little before then. So now I'm kind of envisioning that, but I'm like, no, there's no trains in the 1700s. So I'm excited. I'm going to have to read it. That's essentially, I'm just talking myself into reading that book right now. So thank you.
How about this? You read it, and you tell me what you think. Same with your N.K. Jemisin book, and then I'll follow suit.
Okay. Thank you for giving me homework. But yeah, so interestingly enough, yeah, I love Greek mythology, but I didn't put anything. Oh, I guess I have Circe on here, which would be the representation of ancient Greece. But I didn't want to make this like just a Greek mythology episode. So trying to think just like stuff that's more historical versus mythology, which Circe is more mythology, but I just want to give a shout out because I do love that one. But another book that is like kind of more old, like I don't want to say ancient, but just like older times, which I know you didn't get to read it this time, but The Bear and the Nightingale we read in January. And that one was fun in a similar way because I also find Russian history very interesting. And that one is in the like 1300s, I think. It said like 14th century.
Yeah.
I always get confused about how those line up.
Wait, Demi, I have a really important question for you. Okay. Do you consider 14th century to be ancient?
not ancient, older than the Mummy.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, the Mummy being the relative like point at which we measure. Gotcha. Okay, I was gonna say, I don't think that's ancient. It's only like what 600-700 years. Like that.
Okay, yeah, I'm very American, so of course I was like, oh yeah. So that one is not ancient, but it's older than the Mummy, just to summarize. And it's like the 14th century. And that was really interesting because I'm assuming the author did a lot of historical research because there were so many details on just like the daily life of living on like in like rural Russia. Like it wasn't it was in Moscow for part of the series. Which was, again, a lot smaller at the time. It was only like 10,000 people. And then, but for part of it, it's in like northern Russia, like in the forest. And it was so interesting just seeing like the daily life and how people like existed in that cold of a place because it was cold, and I've never thought about I've thought about it, but like how did people survive when it's that cold,
Dude, I don't know. I've watched YouTube videos trying to understand. As a lifelong Californian, that level of cold is something that is as fantastical to me as like a unicorn. Like I can't really like conceptualize how cold it is to be that cold. So I try to watch YouTube videos of like, oh, day in the life of someone living in, what's it called? That ice desert in Russia, Serbia? No, that's a country. Yeah. Siberia. Thank you. Like day in the life of a person living in Siberia. And it looks interesting. Will be the point. Really cold. I'm like, yeah, I don't think I would survive. I also watch videos about people living in Antarctica. And that's also really interesting too, if anyone's interested.
This is not historical fantasy, but in Ink, Blood, Sister, Scribe, by I think Emmett Torres is the author. Part of that is in Antarctica, which was fun. It's not most of the book, but that was the first time I've ever read a fantasy book in Antarctica, which was really cool.
We should add that to our list of continents. See, we have a book for Antarctica, but we don't have one for Australia.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess we technically maybe do in that series. This one wasn't historical. It was present times. So So it was, which I guess makes sense because no one lived in Antarctica until essentially present times that we know of.
Well, give it 50 years and it'll be a historical fantasy. I actually have a book on here for Asia that fits that exact like definition.
Really?
Which is After Dark by Haruki Murakami. So he wrote that book in the early aughts, so early 2000s. So I think we can call it a historical fantasy now, since the early aughts is like older. A style and a vibe. So like it was, because I was struggling. I was like, I must find a historical fantasy based in Asia that I've read. And this was the only one that I could stretch if I stretch the definition really far, it is now a historical fantasy. It's really, I remember reading it and being like, what did I just read? But I really liked it. And I read it the whole way through in one sitting. But I was also like, what just happened? And I think that's like Murakami's like MO.
Yeah. Every time I read one of his books, that's my conclusion is like, I really like this, but I don't know what happened. And I'm confused, but in a good way.
Exactly. In a good way being the key. Yeah.
Yeah. I similarly, I mean, in again, the Naomi Novik Napoleonic Wars series, the first one's His Majesty Dragon. They do go to Asia in one of the books, which was really interesting. They go to China. And they have to travel on ships and stuff, even though they have dragons, if I recall correctly, because it's part of like the military. So like the British military. I'm like, is that the right term? That's what it was still called.
I have the Great British Military. I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, they do go there. They go to China in one of those books, and it was really good. That was probably one of my favorite books in the series. But so I haven't read this, but I saw She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan is also historical fantasy. It's set during the Ming Dynasty in 14th century China. And I've seen so many friends reading this one because I think it came out within the past 5 years. It's pretty recent. So it's supposed to be really good. So I just want to give that a shout out if anyone wants a historical fantasy in China, because it's supposed to be really good. But yeah, I haven't read it yet. The only thing that I've read that's kind of close to historical fantasy, but is more mythology, was Daughter of the Moon Goddess. Did you read that?
No, but I love the title.
It's really good. It's definitely more mythology versus historical fantasy because it's about like Chinese mythology and the gods, and it's mostly set kind of in the sky, like in the heavens.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's good. I think you would actually really like it. That one's good.
I'm a sucker for things based in heaven. So that's already sold.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, I feel like now I'm just like keep listing off all of these mythology books that I've read. And
so we're seeing a theme here.
Yeah.
Is that why you like historical fantasy? Because there's a lot of overlap between mythology and history.
Yeah, probably. Partly. Well, because if I even think about Upon a Starlit Tide, which we recently read, Green Teeth, The Bear and the Nightingale, a lot of the books I've read recently that are historical fantasy, they all pull from folklore.
Yeah.
And like kind of like different like magical I don't want to say ways of thinking, but like that kind of like mysticism almost.
Yeah, like the small gods like get pulled, like there's like small gods in each of the books.
Yeah, like different types of gods and stuff. So, which I'm like, is there historical fantasy where it's not pulling from folklore? That's an interesting question.
I mean, when we go to the Americas, there's the book that we just finished an episode on, which is Agnes Auber's Mystical Cat Shelter by Heather Fawcett, which we both loved.
Yeah, that one was so fun. It's very cozy.
Yeah, very cozy, but not really. I don't think any mythology was integrated into it. It's interesting because when we look at the list of our books that are based in Europe, that is where you see a lot of the mythology being pulled. And then same with Africa and the Middle East too. That being said, I think The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho.
Yeah, I never know how to say.
Yeah, does he have? I don't think he pulls from mythology either. Does he?
I don't. think so. I mean, there's like, other than like alchemy, but that's not really mythology. That's like more almost like scientific history.
Yeah. That's still more historical fantasy, but make it real.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Actually, speaking of alchemy, A Discovery of Witches, you haven't read those, right?
No, I'd love to.
Yeah. So that has alchemy. The main character in that is a professor, and she's a scholar of alchemy, and she's also a witch. This is like, you learn this on like the first page, but she's a witch, and so that's kind of part of like what attracted her to it, is that like she's like grew up as a witch, and then like alchemy has that kind of feel, but it was like early science, so like studying that. And that book also, they do time travel, because that series is mostly set in present times, but they do time travel in book 2 to Elizabethan Europe. Ooh. And it's in like London for a bit, and I think Oxford, and then they go to Budapest and France. So it's like really cool if you like that time period, and there are a lot of notable historical figures who appear in the book.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I do like that time period.
Yeah, I think you would really like that series. And that is, I guess it kind of pulls from folklore, because it has vampires, which are folklore in a lot of different cultures, and also witches. But beyond that, I would say it doesn't really have gods and like folklore,
deities, like things that were once part of someone's religion.
Yeah, exactly. So it's pretty, I guess that would be one that's not exactly folklore, but also a very fun series, and historical fantasy for the middle book. But so if you want a little bit of everything in one series, present times and the past.
How about The Historian? I know that's the other book we have listed under Europe, by Elizabeth Kostova.
Oh, yeah. I feel like I've told you about this one a million times. I really want you to read it. This one is a continuation of the Dracula myth. So it's really vampires. Like that's what it is. And it time travels. It was written, I think, in 2005, and it was like a really big deal when it came out. And it's set partly in, I believe, the 70s. I looked this up. It was the 1970s and the 1930s in Europe. So it's, like Cold War Europe, and then also, see, that's where I don't know enough about those time periods. But in the book, like it was hard for them to go into, like, they go to like Prague and Budapest, and they go to Turkey, and also, Dracula's from like Transylvania, so they go to Romania and Bulgaria. It makes me want to go, like, reading that book makes me want to go to Bulgaria and Romania and these like regions of
Eastern Europe.
Yeah, like these parts that like aren't as popular, and like because it feels like reading the book. I mean, it's fantasy, but it just felt so like mystical and magical, and just really cool. Also, I'm terrified of vampires though now.
Oh, okay. I've always wanted to go to Prague because did you ever watch Sabrina the Teenage Witch when you were a kid?
I did. Does she go there?
No, her boyfriend goes there. Her college-age boyfriend goes there. And they just made it seem cool. And I didn't even know. I was like, what country is Prague in? But I was like, I want to go. This seems really like cool.
If you're interested in like the Cold War times, you should definitely read The Historian, because it really has that feel and talks about like they have to deal with like government political stuff to be able to go and like do, I don't want to give away the book, but they're on this quest. It's kind of like Indiana Jones feeling, but with vampires. Like,
so you're saying that vampires had to go through the bureaucratic red tape?
No, the humans.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, wow, what polite vampires.
No, it's the main characters are all humans. So it's like, it is like, and it's written kind of in the form of letters. So it feels like a continuation of Dracula, the novel, like Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Okay.
So that's
I've never read Dracula.
I read The Historian first, and then it made
you want to
like it. Yeah, So
gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Now that I think about it, I've never read a book about a vampire where the vampire, this is going to be so embarrassing, but where the vampire wasn't a main character and was sexy and a love interest. So
you're like Twilight or
well, even Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil kind of falls under that, because they're like, good looking young ladies.
Yeah, like seducing people and yeah.
Like the Vampire Diaries, like they're always like a main character and they're always good looking. Like I've never read one where it's an actual monster. I guess maybe Supernatural, the TV show. I think if I ever that's about it. Like,
yeah. Now I'm like, the historian definitely, the vampire is dangerous. Also I'm not going to say it's a spoiler, but there's another book that we have talked about on this list where there is a vampire who is scary. But I'm not going to say which one because I don't want to ruin it.
All right. Okay, deal.
But anyone who's read it knows what I'm talking about. But yeah, the historian's really good. If you need something spooky this fall and you're like, I feel like it'd probably be really good as an audiobook, but I read the book. So yeah.
It'll definitely be my fall read this year.
Yeah. Because it's, you can like really immerse in it and then feel like you're traveling. Anyway, I love that book. I want more people to read it. And so far I've gotten no one to read it because it's pretty long. So
that's the thing that does scare me a bit. But
you read Brandon Sanderson.
Yes, exactly. I have no excuse. So maybe it's time.
Yeah. Well, maybe you'll be able to check it out.
Tell me about the books that you have for the Americas.
The one that I put on here, because you like Alexandria, but have you read The Once and Future Witches?
No.
Okay. So that one is set in 1893 and it's kind of like the women's suffrage movement, but fantasy and like magic and kind of like witchcraft, but more like generational spells and type of stuff like that. So it's cool. It's like if it's a very specific point in time. And I think it's set in Massachusetts, maybe like wherever, New England, wherever all of that stuff was happening. So that's a good one if you are interested in that particular time period. And then I also have Magic Lessons by Alice Hoffman. Oh my gosh, both of them have, it's like Alex Harrow, Alice Hoffman. Their names are very similar. Whoa. Anyway, so Magic Lessons it's set in the colonial Americas. And I think also is partly in Jamaica or Bermuda or something, like somewhere in the Caribbean, if I remember correctly. It's been a little bit since I read it. But it's basically like, do you know the movie Practical Magic?
Love that movie.
Yeah. So in that movie, it has, like in the first scene, they talk about their ancestor, Maria, and how she was prosecuted. And that's why she creates this curse for her like legacy. So this book is following Maria and why she creates that curse.
Oh, that is so interesting. I didn't realize it was part of the Practical Magic series. But I do have to say, I think colonial Americas is a great setting for historical fantasy. Yeah. But also, looking at our list, I realized we don't have any books for South America. And South America would be a great place for historical fantasy. Like, come on, like the Incas, the Mayas, like.
Dude. Yeah, there is one. Oh gosh, I can't remember what it's called. There's one that is, I think it's the Aztec. Hold on, let me see.
While you look it up, all I can think of right now is The Road to El Dorado, the animated movie, which is a great movie. And that's all I can think of.
Oh, I think it's Gods of Jade and Shadow. Let me see. Yeah. Okay. So the book that a lot of people have recommended this. I haven't read it yet. I'm assuming you haven't read it or you would have probably written it down. Gods of Jade and Shadow by Silvia Moreno Garcia. So I've read Mexican Gothic by her, which is set in modern times in Mexico. Actually, maybe it is in the 50s. I don't know exactly when it's
set. That counts. We're counting it. We have one historical fantasy here.
Well, don't quote me exactly on what it's set. It's been a little bit since I read it. But yeah, Gods of Jade and Shadow is supposed to be Mayan mythology. And I don't know what time period it's supposed to be set in. But it says the Mayan god of death. sends a young woman on a harrowing, life-changing journey.
Ooh.
So, yeah. So that's one from South America, but I don't know too many others.
Yeah, I'm seeing a list here. So they do exist. I think maybe we should add it to our list next year to read. So we could diversify our geographies, our historical fantasy geographies.
Yeah, because I'm like, this year on the list, I guess we have some high fantasy. So, you got to incorporate some other worlds too.
Yeah, that's so true. As you got to rep for the non-Earth places. As someone who loves high fantasy.
But yeah, that is a good point. I do think that like in general, the genre, it's moved away from everything being like, how do I want to say, like, Middle Earth, like set it, like feeling like it's set in like
Europe.
The UK. Yeah.
Yeah.
And now there's like different kinds of historical fantasy, but a lot of it still is in Europe, which is where I think The Adventures of Amina al-Sarafi felt so unique when I read it. And then also, the one we just read, Agnes Aubert's Mystical Cat Shelter, because that's in Montreal, which I know, I think I told you this, a lot of people at book club who listened to the audiobook thought it was set in France.
Thank God it wasn't just me.
So if anyone who's listened to the audiobook, just so you know, it was actually in Canada.
It's funny how implicit bias works, because the like audiobook's narrator is speaking in a French accent and she uses French words, so you're like, France. But not everywhere that speaks French is like even Haiti, they speak French. So like it could have been set in many places, but like my mind just went to France, and there you go. Like,
well, I mean, they were talking about like croissants and pastries.
Exactly.
So it's like,
it's not France.
But yeah, I'm curious to see if there's more historical fantasy that comes out that's set in different parts of the world. Even American historical fantasy. Like, I feel like we don't have a ton set in, like the South. Like in Twilight and also A Discovery of Witches, they kind of talk about that a little bit. And I think the Twilight books, one of them, do they go to South America or they talk about the history there? I don't remember exactly. But yeah, I don't really know a ton of American historical fantasy books. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't, other than the ones that we have. So like the Agnes Aubert's, the Once and Future Witches, Magic Lessons. And then the last book I'd add is The Golem and the Jinni by Helen Fecker, which I've mentioned, I think, on every recommendation podcast we've done so far.
And we're reading it in, I think, July.
Oh, so, yeah, I'm excited. Yeah. It's like a really good, it's almost like an immigration story. At the turn of the century, so 1899. So when I say turn of the century, I don't mean 21st century, the turn of the 20th century. And it's folklore. It's Jewish folklore and Islamic folklore. So like it's a really, really unique book. But basically it's a golem, which comes from Judaism. It's like a creature made of clay immigrating to the United States, and then a jinni, which is from Islamic mythology, immigrating to the United States, and an unlikely friendship is made. And so,
that's so cute.
It's so good. And I remember it. I remember it's set in New York. And I remember it being really immersive. Like the history, the historical setting was very immersive. Like the, what's it called? Like horse and buggy, like kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
So cool. So yeah, other than that, but I would love to have like a book set in like a historical fantasy set in like California, in like, the 1800s or something. I would totally read that. Like,
or even like a Western, like kind of.
Yeah. Is there a historical Western, like spaghetti Western, but fantasy?
I don't know. Yeah.
There's so many opportunities.
I know. Now I'm like, man, I feel like I just came up with like 8 more books to write.
Yeah,
I'm just thinking about this. Because like in Portland, so here I live by this cemetery. I may have told you about it. It's a pioneer cemetery. So it's like all of the people came over on like Oregon Trail and did all like that time period, which already feels very fantastical to me, like moving out west and like ending up here. And so I'm like, well, yeah, we need like some sort of like fantasy where people are doing that. And, what greets you when you like go to this like forest and there's essentially nothing. And like the Bigfoot lore, I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah. See, the story writes itself.
There's so like our history has so much to give. Like there's so much to explore. We probably shouldn't stop. I think we're in the. I'm happy to be alive when we are, because I think authors are realizing that. And so, like you said, we're not using the same old like Middle Earth, like medieval Europe. Like we've done that, which is great. I love it, but like let's see what else is out there. And there's so much out there.
Yeah. And there's so much history. Someone was actually just telling me about this book. It's called something The Cave Bear. So I don't know. It's like from the 80s. And I don't think it's fantasy, but it's set in prehistoric times. And I think it's like humans and Neanderthals. And it's supposed to be really good, but it's long. And she said it's kind of like has a little bit of magic in it, but it's not like fantasy. Like it's like
you said it came out in the 80s?
Yeah.
Dude, I think I read it when I was in elementary school.
Oh my gosh, really?
I don't know, you saying that just brought up like a core memory. I have to look.
Oh my gosh, now I have to look up what it's called.
And I don't even think I knew what Neanderthals were back then. So like I remember being a little confused.
The Clan of the Cave Bear by Jean M. A.O. I don't know how you pronounce it. Yeah, it's set in the Ice Age. It says between Neanderthals and Cro-Magnon humans.
Dude, that sounds really familiar.
Literally, I'm reading it as like, contains mature themes, is not suitable for young readers. You're like, I think I read this as a child.
Maybe I didn't. Then maybe I didn't, because this was I remember reading this in my 5th grade class. Like it was in the library shelf.
So interesting.
So it probably isn't, because I'm assuming my teacher would not have put like a rated R book in her class for 10-year-olds. So maybe I didn't. Maybe I read some other. I remember reading some kind of caveman book that was a little too above me. So like I read the whole thing, but I didn't quite understand what I was reading. Like I remember that. So it could be this. We'll never know.
Yeah. I want to read it. Yeah. It's so I don't know, everyone listening, I don't know that it's fantasy. I think it's just historical fiction, but maybe has a little bit of like a feel of magic or something. And that's like a time period where, why can't we have a historical fantasy set during like the Ice Age? Like that would be kind of cool. Yeah.
I mean, Ice Age, the movie, is one of the highest grossing films of all time. So obviously the people want it.
It's like Ice Age meets Harry Potter. That's the pitch. Only instead of a magic school. I mean, that would be kind of funny though, if it was like this little wizard trying to learn magic and he has like a woolly mammoth as a sidekick.
Yeah. Or that's how we accidentally create dogs, because dogs were domesticated in the Ice Age. This book writes itself, Demi. It's a man and dog book.
Yeah. There actually is one I saw that is this is not fantasy, but there was I think it's from the author who wrote A Dog's Purpose that became a movie, also wrote a book about the first dog. And it's like supposed to be like the dog that was domesticated, which I have not read. It is not fantasy. But I thought that was interesting.
I would love to read that book.
Yeah.
I always wonder about the first dogs. I don't know why. That's also just something that I also think about is what was it like? How did this happen? Like, how did we make our best friends, the one that's sleeping behind me right now, without a care in the world? Like, how did she come to be?
Yeah. That's so funny, because I think I texted you that at book club, someone was saying that cats have only been domesticated in like the past 100 years or something. But I'm thinking about, don't quote me on this, I didn't fact check it, but I believe her. But then dogs have been like tens of thousands of years or 10,000 years or something.
Yeah.
It's just so fascinating. It's so interesting. There is definitely something magical there. Like that would be a very interesting fantasy. Yeah.
Easy. Like even if you were to tell me the magic was real, I'd be like, yep, that's right. I believe that. So like, like, you know how we always talk about fantasy is like you have to dispel layers of disbelief.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to dispel very few layers of disbelief for a dog fantasy book. So
yeah, that is interesting to think about, because there are some animals that just feel so magical. Because I know that, like, thinking about what agents want and stuff, I have seen some agents who don't want like talking animals or things like that for magic. But thinking about like whales or like an octopus. Like some of them just feel so magical, and it would be cool to have more. Now we're really off of the historical fantasies thing, but like thinking about that, like, yeah, why does it have to be the Napoleonic Wars with dragons? Why couldn't we have whales attacking ships, which like happens in real life, like that happened in our current times, you know?
The orcas have learned. Last thing I'll say about that is, what is more magical to you? A horse that has a cone on its head, or this
like
alien,
like a unicorn?
Like a unicorn.
Okay.
Or a creature that has like 8 legs coming out of it that can change color at will and change its like form at will, and is also really smart, almost as smart as like a human being. Which one is more magical? I leave that with you. Let's move on to our last segment, the multi-continent series, where it spans multiple continents, lots of traveling.
Yeah. Well, I already talked about Naomi Novik's His Majesty's Dragon books, which go kind of around the world. I don't think they go to Antarctica, though. I can't remember exactly. But then V. Schwab, I was realizing making this list, like she definitely likes to kind of span places and also time periods, because The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue is one that it starts in 17th century France, and then it goes for several centuries. I don't remember exactly how many centuries it is, but goes to different countries as well, and also present day New York. And then Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil, which we read, which starts in 1600s Spain, and then they go kind of throughout Europe, and also, no, they're not in New York in the U.S. Where do they go in the U.S.?
Boston?
Yeah.
Yeah. She has a theme, which is you start out in Europe and you make your way to America over centuries.
Yeah. Well, I mean, which aligns with history, like thinking of,
yeah, sounds right.
Yeah. So, not that everyone did that, but, you know, for our country and how it got started.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any others that span like multiple time periods?
No, I don't. I'm interested. I've read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, Bury Our Bones. I am really interested by His Majesty's Dragon series because of the fact that it's multi-continent, and me realizing that I don't have many like travel books, intercontinental travel books. So like I have intracontinental, like Amina El-Sarafi, like she travels the Indian Ocean, so she's going to different countries within like the Indian Ocean, which is in and of itself is pretty cool. Like she makes her way to Yemen, I think she's in Egypt, or she meets an Egyptian, I can't remember, like stuff like that. But I think like big travel, like making your way across the world, super cool. Again, all I can think of right now that I've ever seen is 80 Days Across the World, the movie with Jackie Chan. Well, let me just make sure.
I don't know that one.
It might not be Jackie Chan. It might be. It's Around the World in 80 Days is what I'm thinking of.
Oh,
what did I say? Across the World?
Is this the Jules Verne book?
Yes, but there's like a really silly movie that's like in 2004. It is Jackie Chan. He is in there. It's a Jackie Chan movie, and I really liked it. I thought it was so good.
Oh my gosh, I didn't realize that was a movie. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we talked about this. You you actually haven't watched that many movies. And obviously all I did in my childhood was watch movies. So you played outside.
I did actually play outside a lot. Yeah. The whole farm thing.
Right.
Yeah, it's fun to think about, because when thinking about like historical fantasy and how to talk about it, I was thinking like, well, there's so many time periods, you know, how can we like concisely talk about that? And then thinking geographically is really interesting. But yeah, it just made me think about also just like different books that I've read around the world and like what I know about the world. And my conclusion is that I still have so much history to learn. Like you can never know all of the history, you know, because our brains are still the same as, 10,000 years ago, or I don't even know. I don't know enough about the brains, but But yeah, it's fun to like have fantasy to explore that and try to like learn a little bit, but still have a break from reality and feel like I like a lot because a lot of them also there are some that are rewriting history or like telling it through a different lens, which is cool too.
And like sometimes historical fantasy will also have a redemption aspect to it. Mm-hmm. Like if we could change history, like I said, Life After Life, where she tries to kill Hitler, it's almost like wish fulfillment for us in the current time period. Yeah, like if we could change the way things are, the way things happen, we could. And it's almost like collective PTSD therapy, because one of the treatments for PTSD is to like go back to what happened and change it in your mind. And so we do that with our historical fantasy, is like we change things the way they are to redeem like our collective humanity, like the stain on our humanity and the things we've done to each other. And I think that's really cool. Like that's a really redemptive aspect of historical fantasy that I really like.
It makes me think that, like 100 years from now, I'm like, how many books are there going to be about like 2020? And then, like just processing that as a society, that would be really interesting to have as a fantasy novel too. I think it's too soon. Like, I don't think I could read that right now, but maybe in like 70 years.
It will 100% come out like the way, like after the fallout of the early 21st century, like people will 100% process and they'll try to redeem all the mistakes we made. And maybe if my kids, if they make it through, they'll read it and they'll be like, that is what great grandmother Marianne went through. Who knows how things will play out?
Yeah. So if you were to decide, I know you are a lover of high epic fantasy, but if you were going to read one historical fantasy book next, what would you like? What, not even from our list, but like what would be your ideal like setting, or one from our list? Because it's kind of hard to pick a moment in history. I guess Roman Empire maybe, but
yeah. What's funny is I actually couldn't think of many historical fantasy books set in Rome that isn't mythological. So I would actually probably pick The Historian by Elizabeth Kostova, because you've talked about it enough that I'm interested.
Good. Yeah.
Or N.K. Jemisin's shoot, I already forgot the name of it.
The Killing Moon?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that one I thought sounds really interesting.
How about you?
I think for me, like thinking about our list, well, first I would love if there was a historical fantasy, prehistoric or set in like the South at some point in time, something where it's got like that kind of like, I'm thinking like the New Orleans kind of feel, like with like the moss draping from like the trees and like,
again, are you thinking
so spooky?
Are you thinking of The Princess and the Frog?
I haven't actually seen that.
It's good, but it's that exact vibe.
Oh my gosh. Okay, that, but like adult fantasy. Otherwise, I really want to read City of Brass. I think that sounds really fun. Yeah.
That's on my list too, actually, yes. But again, you read it first, you tell me.
Yeah. This is so fun because I never really thought about historical fantasy as a category before. And yeah.
And one big last takeaway for me is, man, I really need to diversify my historical fantasy because they're out there.
Same.
I'm like, dude, there's a lot of South American historical fantasy. I should read at least one of them. And like same with Australia. Apparently, Australia does have a historical fantasy book by Terry Pratchett, called The Last Continent.
I've heard of that one. That makes sense.
I love Terry Pratchett. It would be an easy read. So I should just read it.
I've never read any Terry Pratchett. I should.
He's good. He's silly. Yeah. Well, maybe silly sounds too demeaning. His writing is really like nihilistic and funny at the same time. I like it. It's very similar to like the way Douglas Adams writes, like Hitchhiker's Guide to the it's very similar. I think they're friends.
That would make sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So like it's kind of similar to that. It's like a fun read. It's like he's a good writer. It's entertaining. So easy peasy for me to read. So maybe I'll add that to my list too. Apparently there is a magical kangaroo.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah. That sounds fun. Maybe I'll have to read that. Yeah. Well, thank you for talking with me about historical fantasy. Do you have any other final thoughts?
No, but I will turn it back to you.
I don't know. Yeah, my final thought is just that I feel like I need to explore this genre more because I'm learning. I feel like I went through this, like, as you can tell, this mythology period where everything I was reading was mythology. And it's like, okay, now I should read more just historical fantasy. Like, it doesn't have to be about the gods, and stuff like that. Like, just magic, but in a different time period. So yeah, I think I'm going to dive into more of this. So we'll see where it leads.
I'm good. I feel like I want to read right now. We're going to hang up and I'm going to go read.
Okay, well, thank you for talking with me. And for everyone listening, definitely please share any historical fantasy recommendations you have, like books that you loved or ones that you're hoping to read. Because, yeah, clearly we need some on our list because we have not read enough in this category yet. So, but thank you, everyone, for listening. And thank you for chatting with me. And yeah, until next time.
Until next time.
That's all for today. If you enjoyed the episode, follow More Magic on your favorite podcast platform to be notified of future episodes. And if you have the time, please rate and review to help us spread more magic to other fantasy readers. As always, if there's a book you want us to discuss, you can let us know at moremagicpodcast.com. In the meantime, we hope your current read becomes your next favorite, and we're sending you more magic.